I think the Washington Nationals are setting themselves up to trade star shortstop CJ Abrams.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into Locked On Nationals. I am your host, Ryan Clary, and we thank you for making us your first listen every single day. And later on in the show, we're going to talk a little bit about an important injury update that you're going to want to hear about. I'll tell you what that is later on. And in the second segment, what do the Nationals have to do come September? Well, I've got two ideas, and you're going to like it. So in the first one, though, I think the Washington Nationals right now are setting themselves up to trade away CJ Abrams. And CJ finally broke his 0 for 11 streak yesterday, but after moving him over to second base, it just feels like the Nationals are going to trade your all-star shortstop. And I know I said the shortstop because he was your NL starting shortstop, but there have been some things that have been happening over the last 24 hours. And if you look at it, it just feels as if the Nats are just going to be moving on. Now, there are some good things about it that we'll get into in a little bit here, but the reason why I believe that they are setting themselves up for a trade is you don't do this to a player, especially one of your star pillar players for someone who's going to be here, hopefully, for the next couple of seasons. I don't think that the Nationals are setting themselves up to be in a spot to keep CJ Abrams. Now, the first thing that I think every fan wants out of this is to get a CJ Abrams extension. I've always believed that the Nationals would never extend CJ. If you wanted to do that, that was back when his price tag was a heck of a lot lower, when it was 2-3 years ago, and when you could have extended him for like an 8-year, $80 million deal or something along those lines. Even then, CJ probably would not have taken that deal. I think that's understandable because CJ, number one, is a confident guy. He's always going to bet on himself. And as we saw this season, he kind of put his money where his mouth is. And this guy balled out, was the NL starting shortstop. He is now a 2-time All-Star, and he has been a phenomenal hitter for the Nationals. The Nats missed that opportunity to extend him. And that's not on this group right now. I think this group would love to extend CJ Abrams, but if you look at the price tag and what it's going to take, we're probably talking at least $250, maybe $300 million. I don't know how much it would take to extend him. But I think that this group has also realized with the way that the ownership group operates and with a lockout looming, you're not going to be spending that kind of money, especially before the lockout. And does it make it more likely with a impending lockout that maybe a player would want to sign an extension? That's a possibility at best, but I'm not going to bank on that, and I don't think anybody should try to bank on that at this point. It just feels as if moving him to second base, a less valuable position overall, feels as if that the Nationals are kind of trying to set themselves up to sell CJ Abrams this offseason. That's just what this move feels like. And here's kind of the spin zone as to why I said that. He has had a career year, career best numbers across the board. He has been incredible. And again, I think this is a superstar bat that does not really come all too often. Someone who can hit 35 to 40 home runs in a season. He can steal 30 plus bases. And I think that even then around baseball, people still underrate this guy. But you move him over to second base now. And I think this is the Nationals version of saying, hey, baseball executives and coaches around baseball, we all know that this guy is not a shortstop. And the reason why they kept him there this long was probably just out of respect of him. But also, it was probably to try to keep his value up. And they're probably thinking to themselves, maybe we can have him improve defensively. That was not the case. And he has not improved defensively. It's probably just stayed the status quo at this point. You now want to move him to second base, and maybe you can see, oh, this guy is pretty good over at second. Maybe he is someone that can really build off of what's going to happen. And maybe he is someone that can really improve defensively over at second. And who knows, maybe that gets him to be a little bit more valuable in an offseason trade. That's kind of what I'm getting at. I heard this yesterday, and it's not a terrible idea, but someone was like, well, maybe this is an idea for the ownership or maybe this group overall to move him over to second base to kind of make an extension possibility a little bit cheaper. And you might be right, but you're not, if you extend CJ, you're not extending him for his defense. And while, yes, playing a premium position at shortstop clearly makes you a little bit more expensive and the money goes a little bit longer there, CJ is not someone that you're going to extend based off his position. You're going to extend him based off his bat. And that elite bat that he possesses is still something that will be of value to any team out there. So I don't necessarily subscribe to that, even though it's not a terrible idea. And maybe the Nationals use that as a bargaining chip down the line with his agent. But I don't think that's going to be the case. And speaking of his agent yesterday talked to The Athletic with Spencer Nussbaum. And let me just say this. Everything about this CJ Abrams situation is getting different. When the Nationals moved off him in the middle of August with a month and a half left of the season, that is a bizarre situation that you don't see really happen all too often. Moving your star player off shortstop when you don't have any reinforcements coming. You don't have Seaver King coming up right away to make that improvement. But you move him off that with your team basically kind of dead in the water. You move him over to second base. That's a bizarre thing. CJ Abrams being very candid about him being like, yeah, like I still view myself as a shortstop. I don't think that's all too bizarre. I think that's a professional athlete that still believes in himself. And honestly, he should believe in himself like that. So I think that's a good thing. And then his agent gets a story with The Athletic. And he gets pretty candid about where CJ, his client, is at. And here were the quotes from CJ Abrams' agent. And it's pretty telling, I think, about that. So here's what his agent had to say. Quote, I think first, CJ was not thrilled about the decision to move him off of shortstop at this time. Abrams' agent, Mike Sanders of Rock Nation Sports, told The Athletic. But his priority is to win games for the Nationals and to be a team first player, and so that is what he's going to do. Sanders doubled down on Abrams' assertion that he views himself as a shortstop long-term and indicated that his client intends to spend the winter focused on improving his defense at his preferred position. Sanders believes Abrams has earned an offseason to prove that he can stick at short. Quote, he's always viewed himself as a shortstop long-term and short-term and would love to have the offseason under the front office to be able to work on that, Sanders said. I believe CJ can be a very good shortstop, and without having an offseason to specifically train at the position using the information and feedback this staff has given him, I don't think we have a full evaluation yet of how good he can truly be there. He might be right, but also, my guy, it's been, 4 years at this point with CJ at shortstop? I get it. This front office, they operate differently. This coaching staff operates differently. All those things are 110% true. And I think this group is totally better at player development. But going from the worst defensive shortstop in baseball to just being a mediocre to average one, that's a pretty big step to take. And it's not as if that he's 21 or 22 years old. He's now 25, turning 26 in October. The results are kind of there. Do I think he could get a little bit better? Of course I could. I think he's one of the hardest working guys in this team. But that's a really long stretch there. I think the results are kind of just speaking for themselves. And right now, it's pretty obvious that CJ is not a long-term shortstop for this team. And so I think this whole move and everything about this is setting CJ Abrams up for a trade this offseason. I think his agent going to Spencer Nussbaum, or if Spencer went over to him, I don't know those details. but him giving quotes in a story. That is a pretty telling thing that, hey, we're not happy about this move and we're going to come out and defend our guy. And we think that the agent who represents CJ, who really kind of gets the ball rolling on extension talks, we're going to keep his value as high as we can. That's what that kind of screams to me. And so all of this whole entire thing has just been bizarre from day one. But now seeing his agent coming out and talking about this, again, pretty bizarre. The Nationals have got themselves in a little bit of a pickle here, but I do think that the CJ talk is something that they're setting themselves up for a pretty big trade this offseason. I was talking to a buddy about this, and we'll get more into it probably later on next week, but he was like, what do you think the CJ Abrams trade will look like if they do decide to trade him this offseason? Will it look like a Mackenzie Gore deal? No, I don't think it will look like a Mackenzie Gore deal. I think it would look a lot closer to a Juan Soto deal than a Mackenzie Gore deal. I believe in that with my 100%. That's the kind of player that CJ is. So if the Nationals can get that kind of haul, that'd be a pretty exciting thing to do. But next, I want to talk about this because we are just, 12 days away from September. And the Nationals, the rosters are going to expand. And with expansion comes prospects, comes younger players. Who will it be? And here is why that I think the Washington Nationals should call up one of their best pitching prospects, Luis Perales. Let's talk about that right after this. Before that, though, let me tell you guys about our friends at Kalshi and make baseball season more this year with our friends on Kalshi. And on Kalshi, America's #1 prediction market platform, you can trade on every single game. And of course, tonight, the Rangers are trading at a 48% probability to beat the Washington Nationals. And here's the thing with Kalshi, it is a prediction market, which means that there is no house and you can buy in and out of your positions on every trade that you make. And of course, on Kalshi, you're trading against peers in a live market, meaning that there is no house. And as the probability changes, you can buy in and out of your position. So download the Kalshi app and use code LOCKEDON to get $10 when you trade $10. KALSHI, Kalshi, trade on anything. 18 plus only. Restrictions and eligibility requirements apply. Event contract trading involves risk and may not be suitable for all investors. Kalshi products are not available in all jurisdictions. Prices, values, and available markets may differ from those mentioned. For more information, see kalshi.com/regulatory. We're back here on Locked On Nationals, and next segment, we're going to get into some good news regarding one of our former top guys in this rotation. But let's talk about someone who could be a top guy in this rotation, and that is Luis Perales. It's time. After watching last night with Jackson Kent kind of just getting hit around, and listen, it's been 2 starts. I'm not going to hit the panic button yet, but it has not looked great. And I thought that Jackson Kent would look a little bit better, but we all kind of have realized that, listen, Kent is a good pitching prospect overall. I think best case scenario for him is that he's a number 4 or a number 5 in the rotation. But I think Perales, the best case is like a lower end number 2, number 3 pitcher in the rotation. And you're starting to see some really good results from Luis Perales. And listen, let's be honest here, guys. The Nationals need some juice. I mean, they have been in a brutal slump right now. The Nats dropped their 4th straight game last night. The offense has looked pretty depleted. The rotation has not looked great outside of Cade Cavalli starts. And the Nationals now have a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs after dropping their 4th straight game. That's according to ESPN. You need some juice. We've talked about Seaver King. I think, again, he had another home run yesterday. Call him up immediately. But I think that everyone should riot if he's not in by September. But Luis Perales is also in that conversation. Because here's the thing. There's probably not going to be a major league season until, I don't know, maybe May, June, July. You're not going to have a normal spring training. You're not going to have a normal offseason. I'm going to need Luis Perales to come up in the majors and be a big difference maker. And right now, the Nationals were kind of seeking for that when it came to Jackson Kent. But that has just not been the case at this point. He got his first major league loss yesterday in a 5-0 loss against the Texas Rangers. And early on, it was pretty clear this is just not working out. And in the first inning there for Jackson Kent, while the Nationals wanted him to be kind of like that spark plug of this rotation, it's just not really doing well. Wyatt Langford started off with a single, and then Corey Seager gets a single as well. And then Jake Berger grounds into a double play, but then Wyatt Langford scores. And then, of course, in the second inning, it's like walks and just things are going bad overall. And 3 walks, 3 strikeouts, gave up that big home run early on in the game. Like, I just don't know what the Nationals need to really do here to call up Luis Perales, because if you're looking at what he's doing in AAA, well, he's doing really dang well. The Nationals have kind of pulled the horses back on Luis a little bit because his last 2 outings, he went 2 innings on August 15th, where he had 2 hits allowed and 5 strikeouts to 1 walk. And then the previous outing before that, he had 4 strikeouts to 4 walks and an inning and 2/3. But if you look at his overall numbers, he's been really good. In the month of July, he had a 1.46 ERA in 24 2/3 innings pitched. He had 16 walks to 29 strikeouts. And this month, he has 13 strikeouts to 7 walks. And listen, this is all in pretty limited action, but he started off the season not doing so hot. And I think that was pretty evident why, number one, his stats were just kind of out the you-know-what. Like, it just wasn't good. And his walk rate was really bad. And the walk rate still is not great. Like 16 walks over 24 2/3 innings pitched. That's something you want to see cleaned up. And it's interesting. Like, I think Spencer Nussbaum from The Athletic was on 106.7 The Fan the other day. And he was talking about, like, yeah, I think they maybe want to see him kind of get his process cleaned up a little bit before they jump him up to the majors. And the results have been great, but they want to get him more of a routine. And I think that overall makes sense for what the Nationals want. Like, this is a process-driven group. And so far, they've been pretty right with every button that they have pressed, especially with our guy, Abby Ortiz. But Perales is another guy that, again, I do believe in some things. And I believe that prospects do provide a little bit of juice. Not only is it just for the fan base, but it's also for the team. And it can kind of get you out of a funk. And when there's new guys in the clubhouse and there's new energy in the clubhouse, then that provides a little bit of a spark for this lineup and for this rotation. But I also think Perales can do that for this coaching staff and just get some new juice back in this building, because right now, after the Nats lost their 4th straight game, they have a 0.2% chance to make the playoffs. And even then, I'll go as far as say they have a zippy percent chance to make the playoffs. 0.2% chance. So I guess you be the one to make the difference there. But this is something that they have to do. They have to call up Luis Perales. They have to call up Seaver King. These are moves that the Nationals should absolutely be making. And I've always been the guy that says, if they're ready, then they got to come. And this group is a lot more patient when it comes to prospects than the previous regime under Mike Rizzo. But the time is now. These are guys that can help you win now, but also in 2027. And just give us something to hope for. Give me something to talk about this offseason. That's a really big thing about this as well. Because I want to see what Luis Perales can do. I can't watch every Rochester Red Wings start on minor league baseball TV. But when Perales is out there, that is going to be must-watch TV for everybody, including myself. And I think that the Nationals should absolutely call him up now. It's something that, again, it's not that they should do it. They have to do it at this point, and that's where I'm at. But we've got some good news, and it has to do with pitching as well. And it's for, honestly, one of the fan favorites who I adore, and I think that a lot of Nats fans will be really happy to hear this update. So I'll tell you this good news right after this. And Locked On Nationals is brought to you by Amazon. And a big thank you to our friends at Amazon for this limited break. This back to school season, spend less on your kids with Amazon. We all know how crazy the back to school shopping experience can be. It starts with a few items on the list, and then suddenly you're shopping for supplies, clothes, lunch gear, tech, and about 10 other things that you didn't see coming. It adds up fast. But of course, when you look at that school supply shopping list, it is a chaotic mess. But with our friends at Amazon, it gives you a better idea of what's to come. Because listen, Amazon, you don't have to wait in line at a store and make sure that they have everything without knowing right in front of your hand and your screen. But with Amazon, you can do all of that and get your back to school shopping in the most efficient and best way possible at the best price possible. And that is something that I think you cannot do anywhere else. In fact, it is a lot more convenient to have something shipped to your door instead of going to wait in those long back to school shopping lines that you don't want to do. Your kids don't want to do. Nobody wants to do it. So, of course, remember, with Amazon's low back to school prices, just spend less on your kids, because every dollar you don't spend on them is a dollar you haven't spent on them. Shop back to school at Amazon and spend less on your kids. We're back here live on Locked On Nationals, and we have got a good update as Josiah Gray was in Fredericksburg for a rehab appearance yesterday and tossed a successful inning of relief in a rehab appearance for the Fredericksburg Nats yesterday. And this has been a long time coming for Josiah after giving it a go last season. He had Tommy John, in 2024, and has been out since then. And, had some setbacks, I think, in his recovery. That's pretty fair to say. And he came out of the bullpen in his rehab appearance tonight, or last night, rather. I think that's kind of an interesting thing to watch. I wonder if the Nationals view him as that moving forward, or maybe they view him as a starter. I don't know. I don't think it's easy to just go out there and assume that he's going to be a bullpen guy or a starter moving forward. It's very early on in this recovery process. I think it's very premature to think that he can make the jump to the majors at some point this season, but it is good to see him, number one, healthy, and he looked decent. He allowed 2 singles, did have a wild pitch yesterday, but threw 16 total pitches, 11 of which he threw for strikes. And for someone who was there, I heard, said it looked good, and the velo was relatively decent overall. And I saw this one video actually from Mark Zuckerman of him just throwing in the bullpen. It's just awesome to see Josiah Gray go out there and pitch for the Washington Nationals. And it's not the Washington Nationals, but to get back out there and get in the swing of things. And I do wonder what the long-term plan is for Josiah at this point, because him coming out of the bullpen is interesting. I do think that if you kind of just look around the Nationals org, they've got some good young starting pitching prospects. We just talked about Jackson Kent, who's in the mix. Luis Perales, who I think will be in this rotation for hopefully years to come. Travis Sikora will be coming sometime, hopefully in the next year or two. Harleen Susana will be someone that hopefully should be up here later on in 2027. Like, you've got a good young group of guys here. But I also think that, you can't just throw away the vets just because you have some young guys who are really talented. DJ Hers is another one that I think is certainly going to be in the mix to be in this rotation. Connolly Early is another guy that's going to be in the mix. Cade Cavalli has earned his spot. Jake Irvin has earned his spot. You've got a ton of guys that make sense to be in this rotation. So I think Josiah coming out of the bullpen is truly something to watch. And who knows, maybe that is something that happens, and maybe Josiah is really good at it. Like, I kind of like mixing in a former starter to be a longer relief guy coming out, or maybe he's just a setup guy. Maybe he really establishes himself as a good bullpen guy because he's got good stuff. And Josiah has always had really good stuff, but it's just been out locating it and figuring out what's best for him and using that pitch mix to his advantage, because throughout his career, he's kind of gotten rocked around, leading the majors and home runs given up over the course of 2 seasons. Like, not the best way to go about it, but I'm excited to see Josiah Gray back, and it's an awesome comeback story. I think he's one of the fan favorites here in the nation's capital, so that was really good to see. It's a feel-good story after nothing really to feel all too good about right now when it comes to the Nationals. But on tomorrow's show, we'll talk more about this Rangers series and, of course, what other things could come from this Nationals Rangers series. We'll talk all about that and much more on tomorrow's show. But until then, have a good one. I'll catch you on the flip side. Go Nats.